Hi all, Play-Doh here, and yes, your eyes are working normally. This is a Devastator build on my channel, and yes, it's nothing groundbreaking as it's just a good old Leap Quake Devastator build, altered for speed by the homie sirjoseph. Full credits to Joe for the build, so make sure you check out his YouTube in the video description below. Now, time for me to take all of Joe's glory. This is an ideal build you want to take into expeditions if you're wanting to min-max your expo times, whether you're solo or in a group. Don't let that fool you though, this build will also handle any content in the game, including trials, with ease as you're a Devastator, and Devastators are, well, devastating currently in Worldslayer. Speaking of trials, you guys are basically getting two build guides in one, as I will be covering some adjustments you'll want to make to this build for trials, so we can one rotation the Arbiter, including the final Arbiter. More on this later though. As I am a meta abuser, and with Devastators being the meta in speedruns right now, it was only a matter of time before I got familiar with the class, and I'm having a blast playing it, aside from cursing Gravity Leap. It's like Hunt the Prey, but worse, which I did not think was possible, as at heart I am a trickster main. Seriously though, who thought it was a good idea adding an internal cooldown to Gravity Leap after the game baiting you into thinking a target's in range, only to have you float in misery, contemplating your life choices for still playing Outriders and still producing content for this game? I digress. Let's get started with our skills. A quick reminder as always to make note of the set we'll be using for this build, which is the 3-piece Seismic Commander set. This increases our damage to enemies with bleed by 50%. For the skills we will be using, it'll be Earthquake, Tremor, and Gravity Leap. Earthquake is our main damage source in this build, and thanks to the new PAX Tree nodes in Puncture and Multi-Strike, makes Devastator truly a no-brain just press Earthquake 3 times. I can play this on my Steam Deck while taking a shit class. Not saying I did that, but I'm not saying I didn't either. Earthquake can also kill enemies that are spawning, which is great as we are focused on speed. It's also an interrupt skill, which means you can interrupt enemies and stagger them. Always a nice little bonus. Our second skill is Tremor, and Tremor is going to be really nice in this build for a little bit of AoE and helping keep uptime of Deathronome. Deathronome gives us a nice AP bonus when one skill is on cooldown, and during the activation of Tremor, since it's technically not on cooldown yet, we can do a nice Gravity Leap, Tremor, 3 Earthquake combo, giving us full uptime of the AP bonus from that mod. This is just an example of one combo. Another nice combo is to do a Gravity Leap, 1 Earthquake, then prop Tremor, and the rest of your Earthquakes. This is especially nice for bossing for enemies like Dr. D, Moloch, and for some nice juicy AoE damage from the Tremor proc. The last skill we'll be using is the most consistent and never bugs out skill in the entire game, called Gravity Leap. This is our main movement skill and will also be a nice debuff when paired with the Despair mod. I know Despair got nerfed, but it's still one of the best debuffs in the whole game, so if you're using Gravity Leap, you better pair it with Despair. It's also an interrupt ability, just like Earthquake. Moving on to our class tree, let's quickly go over Devastator's class passives. For every close range kill, we get healed for 24% of our maximum health. Remember, close range is 10 meters, and we can easily find out this range by looking at our minimap lines, as each line indicates 10 meters in range. We also receive an additional 15% max health. Woo! Max health, the best stat in the game! And lastly, we get a 30% armor bonus. Oh, and our melee inflicts bleed, about as useful as the consistency of Gravity Leap. To be fair, once you get the hang of Gravity Leap, it's not that bad as I make it out to be. We're running a standard bottom tree to maximize our cooldowns and our damage for this build, and heading to the top tree for additional armor pen and cooldowns. While yes, I can go over every single node, I won't because most of you skip this section anyways. Feel free to mouse over them in-game or via the Outriders Outpost app for additional details. If you do want me to cover these class nodes in detail for future guides, please do let me know in the comments section below and I'll do so. I'm basing this from the analytics I have on my videos on which parts are viewed more frequently than the others, and the class tree section has some pretty abysmal retention times. Make sure to also check out my Outriders Outpost profile, which is also linked in the description below, to always have the most up-to-date builds I'm currently running, as those are updated as I make changes to them. Taking a look at our PAX tree now, we're going full bottom, starting with Impact Point. Our seismic and kinetic skill damage is increased by an additional 50% of our anomaly power. That bonus damage is split among all enemies damaged. This affects all 3 of the skills we'll be using, which is really nice. Then we move on to Puncture, one of the best PAX nodes for Dev. Our seismic skills inflict bleed. Not only that, anomaly damage to enemies afflicted with bleed is increased by 10%, which is really hot. If you've seen my past videos, you know why anomaly damage is so good for a 99% of the builds in Outriders, and the fact that we get a free 10% here is huge. Our Earthquakes and Tremor also being able to inflict bleed is great because this means we no longer need to run the T1 mod Bloodshot to take advantage of the Seismic Commander set bonus and our bleed mods, freeing a mod slot for our gear. Awesome. The third PAX Tree node in Earthen Shell makes Dev immortal. Damage dealt with this skill is converted to a shield. Now the tooltip says this is a 1 second cooldown, but it is actually 0.5 seconds as noted in the latest patch notes. The 1 second tooltip display is a rounding quirk in the game's engine, it's actually 0.5 seconds. The fourth PAX node is Upheaval. Enemies damaged by seismic skills become upheaved for 2 seconds, storing 15% of the damage, a small buff from the 10% with the latest patch, received during that time and releasing it once the effect ends. This node used to be cracked out of its mind back in the good old beta days, but now it's just okay. Mostly notable on something like the Arbiter, but pretty much just a free bit of damage elsewhere. And finally, we have the juiced of most of our damage in Multi-Strike. This node also received a bug fix with a 700% stored damage cap for anomaly power. 30% of damage dealt by seismic skills is stored and added to your next seismic skill. The effect resets every time you release your stored damage. TLDR, just press Earthquake 3 times really fast and watch things die in front of you instantly. Pro tip, make sure to add a movement command during Earthquakes for a faster and smoother animation. While they did bug fix this node, it still becomes Broken Strike at times and does some insane damage when used correctly. More on this later when we go over the Trials build, so stay tuned for that. Heading to our Ascension Points, I'm going to continue being a broken record. Our first 10 points will always be into anomaly damage. From there, we can get points into anomaly power, resistance pierce, damage to elites, increased mag size, armor pierce, and status power. Once you get those Ascension points, it really doesn't matter where you put the rest for this build, so just put it where you want. Time for gear. Starting with our weapons, our primary weapon we have here is the Thunderbird with Ultimate Storm Whip, Deathronome, and T2 Storm Whip. Ideally, I would have loved to have Violent Rupture here as the Epoch mod since it's a better mod with a tad bit of AoE damage than T2 Storm Whip, but this is the best I have at the moment. It's mainly important that we have Deathronome plus Ultimate Storm Whip or Violent Rupture as our 2 mods at least. Okay, so why the Thunderbird and why these mods? Remember, this is a speedrun version of Leap Quake. We use this as our primary to have near 100% of the AP bonus from Deathronome since Mage's Rage is no longer the top dog, and this mod does not require crits, which is a nice added bonus. All you have to do is manage your skill cooldowns and profit. Managing cooldowns is really easy to do with this build as explained earlier when I went over Tremor. The Thunderbird also comes with T3 Storm Whip, which is one of the strongest single target damage mods in the game. For our Epoch slot, we have T2 Whip, which is a nice substitute for Violent Rupture. A Diamo Banana is a good option here for the Thunderbird as it also comes with T3 Whip. Another alternative, mostly for group play and in the Trials, is the Mythos with Omen, Deathronome, or Mage's Rage and Fortress. Use Thunderbird and Diamo Banana for solo expos, and the Mythos for Trials and group expos. Again, more on this later when we cover the Trials build. Our secondary weapon is our good old Funeral Pyre that has been with us for our long journey with Shadow Comet, Weakness Trap, and Claymore Torrent. This is the 3 best AoE mods we can combine with a shotgun as they have low cooldowns and take advantage of multi-procking the mods with each shotgun pellet that hits an enemy. We use this weapon and the mod combo for additional AoE clear and to help with bunched up enemies when our Earthquake is on cooldown. Remember to not hold your gun trigger for this weapon as we want to tap instead. Our guns do 0 damage and they are our tools to deal massive damage with the weapon mods itself. The 2 mods we want to focus on here is either Shadow Comet with Weakness Trap or Claymore Torrent if you can't get all 3. Lastly, for our weapons we have the trusty Torment and Agony that has also been with us since early access with Radiation Splash, Clip Combustion, and Moaning Winds. This reload mod combo is really great burst damage to help with elites and bossing. A nice combo is to Gravity Leap on an elite and then swap to your pistols for a clean one-shot. Gravity Elite plus Despair and the reload mod is usually a one-shot kill in solo for most elites. This is a nice little trick you can do when you know how spawns work. For example, in Boomtown, you can Gravity Leap, reload mod, and Ironclad to spawn the next wave of elites and instantly finish them off with 3 Earthquakes. In Speed, min-maxing is everything. Remember to also empty out your pistols before each expedition or trial so you can just swap to it to instantly get the reload mod activation. If you don't have the God Roll version, please prioritize Moaning Winds with either Radiation Splash or Clip Combustion. Heading to our armor pieces, the stats we would like to focus on for our not set pieces is Anomaly Power. Aside from that, the other 2 stats really don't matter, so don't tunnel vision onto it too much, but Status Power would be my next go-to. The helmet we are running is the Cranium of a Lost Creature, as it comes with great attributes and the T3 mods we like for this build in Power Assimilation. The other two mods we are running in this build are Bloody Boost and Anomaly Echo. Power Assimilation is a great flat anomaly power boost for each elite present on the battlefield, which is nice. This gets more value on monster maps since Alpha Preferos also count as elites, but still a solid mod in any other scenario. Our second mod here is Bloody Boost for an additional 8% damage increase for enemies afflicted with bleed. For the Epoch mod, we have Anomaly Echo for another nice flat anomaly power increase. If you don't have a Cranium of the Lost Creature, the Ronin's Amigaso is also a good option. For the chest piece, we are running the Seismic Commander armor with no resistance against the Fortified, Earth's Legacy, and Captain Hunter. No resistance against the Fortified is great for us as this increases our resistance piercing by 65% of our armor piercing value. Thanks to our class nodes and Ascension Points, our base armor pierce is currently 30%. This mod, when paired with Unstoppable Force, more on this later, is a nice little boost in damage. The second mod on our chest is Earth's Legacy. Increase Earthquake's range by 60%. This is mandatory if you're using Earthquake, as this allows us to freely use Earthquakes to nuke enemies from afar. And for our last mod on our chest, we have Captain Hunter. You've heard it in every other build guide, and you're going to hear it in this one too. This mod should be in every build. 16% damage to elites is non-negotiable. Heading to our pants, we have set piece 2 of 3 with the Seismic Commander's leg armor. The mods we are running are Tainted Blood, Despair, and Move Groove. Tainted Blood is self-explanatory, as 16% damage to enemies afflicted with bleed is great for our build. Despair is also mandatory, as we are running the best skill in the game called Gravity Leap. Enemies within the damage radius of Gravity Leap will receive an additional 30% more anomaly damage for 5 seconds. Huge debuff PSA, 30% anomaly damage is good. It's a great debuff for any build, even FP builds that uses rounds, because rounds themselves do anomaly damage. The last mod we're running here is Move Groove. Moving increases your anomaly power and firepower by X amount. You're probably going, Plato, why in the YouTube friendly word are you using this mod? Well, that's because it's the best mod you can actually roll as an Epoch drop on pants for the speedrun build. What do you mean? Why can't something like Captain Hunter drop on Epoch mods on pants? Well, that's because Epoch mods have a set pool of mods that can only drop on certain pieces of gear. Check out the link in the video description below to get a full overview of what mods can drop on Epoch slots for armors. Moving on to our gloves, we have a pretty nice pair with Ground Crush, extra range and arms anomaly, and with anomaly power as an attribute. Nice. Ground Crush is actually like the only useful mod that can drop for this build on gloves, and they're surprisingly really common. This mod increases Earthquake's base damage by X. Not a huge increase in our damage by any means, but hey, it's not a dead mod. Our second mod is Extra Quake, which is mandatory if you're using Earthquake as a skill. This allows us to have one additional usage of Earthquake before it goes on cooldown. For our POC mod, we have Arms and Anomaly, the only crit requirement on this build. Critical shots increase your anomaly power by X for 6 seconds. Just land a crit here and you're set. It's a huge flat AP bonus, so you will be missing out on a good amount of damage if you forget to proc the crit. Try to proc this ever so often. You don't have to try to proc it every 6 seconds, but it's nice to have for elites and bossing. Last but not least, we have our boots completing our seismic set. The mods we have here are Second Quake, Danger Close, and Unstoppable Force. Just like with Extra Quake, Second Quake is mandatory when running Earthquake, as having 3 Earthquakes unlocks the full potential of the multi-strike PAX node. We then slotted in Danger Close for an additional 6% anomaly power bonus for each enemy in close range, stacking up to 4 times. Remember, close range is 10 meters, and as a refresher, make sure to pay attention to the minimap lines, as each line is 10 meters in range. The Apocalypse mod on our boots is Unstoppable Force, as this gives us an additional increase in our anomaly power by 50% of our resistance pierce. Thanks to Naraft, aka no resistance against the fortified, our class nodes, and our Ascension Points, we currently have 60% resistance pierce, giving us a 30% bonus to our anomaly power. And that covers the speedrun build, but wait, now it's time for the second build guide in this video, the Trials version. This version of the build is meant specifically for Trials and will allow you to single-handedly destroy the Arbiter in one rotation when you combo correctly with the required gear. To all you non-believers on Reddit that made it here, pay attention. You'll learn something new. You can also use this version of the build, just like with the speed version, in any of the game's content, and it will clear it with ease. Even if you don't combo correctly, that's okay. What's one more rotation to kill the Arbiter? Our class tree, PAX trees, and Ascension Points will be the exact same. Our skills will also be the same until we reach the Arbiter. There, we'll make one adjustment in switching Tremor to Impale, but more on this later. For our main weapon for the Trials version of the build, we'll be running the Mythos with the mods in Omen, Deathronome, or Mage's Rage, and Fortress. Pretty self-explanatory why we run these, as they are really good for AP builds. For our secondary weapon, we'll be using a purple shotgun with Noxious Spawns and Firestorm. You can run anything here as long as you have the 2 mods in Noxious Spawns and Firestorm, as we will be feeding into Toxic and Burn multipliers. More on this when we go over the Trials gear. Our pistols remain unchanged. For our gear, for the Trials version, we have some mod adjustments. Our helmet, we swapped out Bloody Boost for Euthanizer. Ideally, we want both of these mods, but our gloves are not the best right now for the Trials version, so we have to take out Bloody Boost to use the higher percentage multiplier in Euthanizer to synergize with the Toxic from Noxious Spawns for more damage. Our chest piece is unchanged. Do note that we get better juice out of no resistance against the Fortify now that we are using the Mythos, which has Armor Pierce as an attribute. This will also feed into Unstoppable Force as well. Our pants, we will be using a different pair with V Compound on the Epoch slot to again feed into the Toxic from Noxious Spawns for the additional 10% damage to elites, good old Captain Hunter Light. Our gloves also remain unchanged. There are better gloves that we can get for the Trials version, but these are the best we have to work with at the moment, and it's not a huge deal. Lastly, for our boots, all we did was swap out Danger Clothes for Bullet Kindling to pair with Firestorm for another percent multiplier for more damage. Percentage multipliers in this game are hot, so do abuse them when you can. So now you may be wondering, is it worth it? Are we not losing some damage focusing on these Toxic and Burn mods? Not at all. With how great Multi-Strike is with Earthquakes, you won't even notice a difference when mobbing and dealing with your regular elites. Remember, you can also swap to your secondary situationally for some hot elite clears. But with that said, you do not need to even swap weapons from your Mythos until you get to the Arbiter. You can if you want to min-max a bit more damage, but there is no need at all. Now, when we do get to the Arbiter, we will be doing one quick skill swap from Tremor to Impale, as I mentioned earlier. Remember to swap back to Tremor from Impale once you complete the Arbiter fight. We will not be using any Impale mods. So, why the swap to Impale? Well, 1, Impale has a much higher base damage than Tremor by a lot. And 2, and the most important reason, it gives Multi-Strike, our PAX capstone, a huge kickstart. Let's take a look. So, what just happened and how does this work? Let's go over the combo step by step. We will first let the Arbiter jump so he's not immune. Then, we shoot our secondary to proc our Toxic and Burn mods in Noxious Spawns and Firestorm. Make sure to not hit a crit shot here, as we'll be focusing on crits with Mythos for better uptime on Arms and Anomaly and Mage's Rage if you choose to go this mod versus Deathronome. Then we will quickly swap to our Mythos and start shooting to proc Fortress, which has a visual indicator of your hands glowing green when active. Make sure to also crit here and activate Arms and Anomaly, and if you are also using Mage's Rage, stack its 4 crits for higher Anomaly power. This should all happen at nearly the same time, because as you see Fortress proc, it's go time into Gravity Leap. Pause. What about Omen? Omen is kind of a dead mod here in the sense that we have to go fast for the uptime of all of our damage buffs. Our Toxic, Burn, Fortress, Arms and Anomaly, Mage's Rage all has a window as statuses and buffs don't last forever. Since Omen requires a 4-second of charge time after weapon swapping, it usually doesn't make it into the rotation. But back to the combo. Once we Gravity Leap onto the Arbiter to proc Despair, we'll need to quickly Impale into 3 Earthquakes ASAP. This part is important, so pay attention. Our 3rd Earthquake needs to start before our 2nd Earthquake ends for juicy multi-strike broken strike damage. If timed correctly, like in this clip, you get a massive multi-strike hit with Upheaval and 1 rotation the Arbiter. Hot. Don't stress out too much if you don't get it on your 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or even 20th try. It takes a good amount of practice and a bit of luck on your side to get it consistent. Usually, the Arbiter sits at half HP to like 30% HP because I screwed up somewhere and messed up the timing. Note that we can actually get a much cleaner kill here where the Arbiter simply dies after 3 Earthquakes, but I need some better gloves to do so. I'll do a quick update to the build when I find these gloves in the future. Time for some general tips and tricks. Use your Earthquakes with some common sense. Don't throw 3 Earthquakes into a bloody Profero, for example. I think the only exception to this rule is Rifleman. I'll gladly throw 3 Earthquakes into any Rifleman I see. Do not spam Tremor randomly. Remember, we want as much uptime as we can get for Deathronome, taking advantage of Tremor not counting as a skill cooldown until after its duration. This was explained in more detail in the skills section when we covered Tremor. Always remember to input a movement command when using Earthquake. This performs an animation cancel so you can get them out much faster. Get familiar with Gravity Leap's distance. You can activate the skill from anywhere to float in the air, but if you are out of the target's range, you will need to manually cancel the skill, and it goes on a short internal cooldown. Gravity Leap can also be used as a way to escape incoming damage as well as the Arbiter's axe phase, usually a good time to take a nice sip of water. Be aware of your minimap to line up hot earthquakes. You see a bunch of red dots, aim your earthquake in that direction and watch those dots disappear. Remember to tap your shotgun without ADSing. It's better to hipfire the shotgun pellets for more spread to multi-proc your weapon mods. Do not neglect your pistols. As much as you may not like it or are not used to it, it's a nice amount of damage, so start practicing. Since we're only using reload mods here, make sure to empty your clip prior to a trial or an expedition. Other than that, this is a super easy build to play and the benefit of never dying is great. At the end of the day, all you really need to do is press Earthquake 3 times and wait for it to come back on cooldown. That's it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. I know I did when Sir Joseph first taught me of this combo on the Arbiter. He literally had to teach me step by step because I was so bad at it, and look at me now. Hopefully I was able to explain it well enough for everyone to do it on their own. Let me know in the comments down below if you were able to get the kill in one rotation or how close you got to the one rotation. Just keep in mind, you will need to combo correctly as I mentioned earlier and also have the required gear. As always, feel free to check out any of my other Outriders content that should be popping up now, as well as a full list in the video description below. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/PlaterBear and also click that link in the comments to join the Discord homies. I'd also appreciate if you're able to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Till the next one, peace.